With the recent release of Halloween Ends, I thought I'd rank all 13 movies. Now, the Halloween franchise has been around for over 40 years, it has multiple timelines, and it has some good and awful films. But personally, this is my list, so let's get down to it. Coming in at number 13 is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. I have always hated this film over the years, from the lack of interesting characters to the mere fact that Jamie Lloyd was mute for most of the film. Complete setup from the previous movie is ignored in this. They kill off Rachel, and quite frankly, this was the low point in the franchise at the time. And the mere fact Michael Myers sheds a tear in this movie as well. And because of that moment, this is one of the reasons I'll never watch this film ever again. Like, without question, the worst movie in the Halloween franchise, in my opinion. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 takes the number 12 spot, and this is another movie I hate. From the mere fact that Michael Myers was made into a hobo, and Laurie Strode was all wild out and crazy, then Rob Zombie really took this in a completely different direction. This film does have some head characters such as Dr. Samuel Loomis, who becomes a douchebag in this movie. This whole movie is an incoherent mess, and the only other film in the franchise I'll never watch again. And quite frankly, I got better things to do with my time. Not because I find this one offensive, but because the storyline in this one is just a waste of time in my opinion. At the number 11 spot is Halloween Resurrection. From boring characters to the plot of Michael Myers' childhood house being used for a live internet horror show, and the mere fact that Busta Rhymes, Freddy, well, let's just say he was one of the worst parts of this film.
So you want to be on Dangertainment? Let's see what you got. Trick or treat, motherfucker.
And not just that, they killed off Laurie Strode in the beginning of this film. Talk about the disrespect to that character. This movie is so awful, it actually led to the 2007 Halloween reboot just 5 years later. At the number 10 spot is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. This one always got on my nerves over the years. The characters are really boring. This whole film is a giant mess, and it couldn't be saved considering how awful Halloween 5 is. One thing I will say though, seeing Michael Myers go on a rampage in the hospital is something noteworthy. And whether it's the theatrical cut or the director's cut, which made Michael Myers the father of Jamie Lloyd's baby, this one is pretty forgivable when I really think about it. At number 9 is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. This one is interesting to say the least, and reason being is the mere fact that despite my negative view on it, I do take credit that this was an anthology movie, and the mere fact where the Halloween franchise could end up. Now, Michael Myers is a big part why this franchise has been successful. But when it comes down to it, it is noteworthy that the studio took a risk. And sure, it didn't pay off for them in the long run, but a lot of people consider this a cult classic. But for me personally, I think this film is alright. Not a great movie, but not a terrible one either. Halloween Ends takes the number 8 spot, and I must say, despite how underwhelming this movie is, there are some interesting moments here and there, but the focus being on Corey Cunningham too much, the disrespect once again to Michael Myers, and the mere fact that the final confrontation between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode didn't live up to expectations. Sure, this was a horrible way to end the new trilogy, but I must admit, it simply is not the worst Halloween film in the franchise. Yes, this franchise has highs and lows, but when it comes down to it, this one, despite its disappointing end, it did finally end the story between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, and that's something. Sure, this movie wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it's not an outright disaster either. Coming in at the number 7 spot is Rob Zombie's Halloween. You know, I must admit, when I first saw this, I wasn't feeling it too much. With the darker tone and obviously all the characters being degenerates, I was really saying, Rob Zombie took this franchise in a different direction. But I must admit, this film has grown on me throughout the years. I come to appreciate it. And not just that, but This movie is part prequel, part shot-for-shot remake, and they managed to make Michael Myers scary again. And there are some intense and suspenseful moments all throughout this film. Sure, this movie is not great. I wouldn't even call it the best of the franchise. It did do things differently, taking Michael Myers, showing him in his home, and I thought that was interesting. But overall, this is not a disastrous Halloween movie. Coming in at number 6 is Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers. Personally, this is one of my favorite films in the franchise. Seeing Michael Myers return was cool. New characters such as Jamie Lloyd, played by the young Daniel Harris, and the mere fact that Michael Myers is trying to kill his own niece. And not just that, but this does have some of the best kills in the franchise up to this point. And with a compelling story, then this is a film I have enjoyed throughout the years. Coming in at number 5 is Halloween Kills. Now, despite this film being out only a year up to this point, I have grown to appreciate it. To return characters Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace, to seeing Michael Myers go on an absolute tear with some of the most brutal kills in the franchise. And this is quite an entertaining Halloween movie. Sure, this film is decisive, but there are many things I like about this movie, such as the 1978 flashbacks, and the mere fact we get more character depth on some of these new characters in this trilogy. And that's what a trilogy is supposed to do. It's the second chapter, and it's supposed to leave you wanting more, and that's what this film did. Coming in at number 4 is 2018's Halloween, or as I like to call it, Halloween Returns, because it is the return of the franchise, the return of Michael Myers, and making this one the direct sequel to the 1978 movie was the right choice, considering how troubled this franchise was before this film came out. And to be honest, I didn't appreciate this film that much when I first saw it, but now since it's been a few years, there are things I do like about it. The acting from Judy Greer and Andy McIntyre, seeing Jamie Lee Curtis return to the franchise, and the mere fact John Carpenter had help with the music. And this is a film that I really appreciate now. At the number 3 spot is Halloween H2O 20 years later. This is what a finale should be. The mere fact that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers' story comes to an end in this timeline. And this is personally, like I mentioned before, my timeline that I like to look at. So because it all started from the original Halloween, and then to me, the story ended here with some interesting characters and some funny dialogue. And this film was so important, it saved this franchise from going to DVD. And this is certainly a great movie, even nearly 25 years later. Coming in at number 2 is the original Halloween 2. This is a classic movie with interesting characters. And yes, while they're only at a hospital throughout the film, it works. Seeing Michael Myers trying to track down Laurie Strode, it leads to some very intriguing moments, to say the least. And this movie did end it in a big way, seeing Dr. Loomis blow himself and Michael Myers up in the process in order to save Laurie Strode. I always considered this one a great film in its own right, and quite frankly, they could have ended the story here and I would have been fine with it. And at the number 1 spot is the original Halloween movie. As the old saying goes, you can't beat a classic. From seeing this as a child to now rewatching it every Halloween, it has become a tradition of mine. Laurie Strode, Michael Myers, and Dr. Samuel Loomis, the 3 key characters that have made this franchise. And what's funny, this wasn't even supposed to be a series, considering that John Carpenter wanted to end the story here. But as they say, money changes everything. What makes this film so iconic and unbeatable, even by today's standards, it keeps the story simple, and the mere fact there are some enjoyable moments. And Michael Myers was this new antagonist that a lot of people didn't understand, and that is why it is at the number 1 spot and the best Halloween movie to date. And well, there you have it. That is all 13 Halloween movies ranked from worst to best. I wanted to do this list actually for a long time now, but I wanted Halloween Ends to come out first before I did. And since this is my list, it's not the perfect list, but it is my opinion. So I want you guys to go down below in the comment section and let me know what is your favorite films from this franchise ranked from worst to best. Alright, this is Slim Guy 172 saying peace out.